Hello, welcome to session 7 of Sigma training. My name's Kim Blake and this session is on adding invoices. Just have a couple of slides to show you, then we'll go into the live database. So today we're going to have a look at where to add manual invoices within Sigma and then how to add those invoices, how to add them in bulk, and then the relevant pages in the online user manual. So as an example, I'm going to add this invoice into Sigma. So we've got the normal details, the account number, the MPAN, the serial number, to and from dates, and we've just got one line of data, so one reading, and then one set of standing charges, then your VAT, in this instance at 5%. So whether this had got 1 or 20 lines of data, the principle is the same. We'll add it in, and then we can add in extra lines for any other data that's in there. So I'll come into Sigma, I'm in the tree configuration, and just to give you a bit of background, I've searched for the meter number, and in here we can see we've got the serial number, we've got the MPAN, and I just want to show you the connection to the account. So if I edit this meter, so the same details there, the MPAN, the serial number, but on the contract tab, we have a section here that's showing any accounts that are linked to that site. This one's ticked, so this is the one that's linked to this meter. I don't have a cost contract attached to this particular account. I can still do validation for any invoices, but I wouldn't be able to validate against the pence per unit, standing charge costs, etc. So that's the background. So to add the invoice in, let's start with the invoice validation menu, portfolios, and then manage accounts. So in here, I'll see all of my accounts, and I'm going to search for the account that I want to look at, and we've got the details here. So scrolling across the page, you've got a summary, start and end dates, totals, etc. Now, as before, you can put this screen as you want to see it. You can move the columns around, add in, hide columns, and then save your view. Anything with a hyperlink you can click on. So this is the account number, and it's going to confirm those details for me. So it's portfolio, it's demo portfolio, it's with EDF, we've got the account number, it's electricity. Then below we've got the meter that it's linked to, so the MPAN and the serial number of the meter. If it needs editing, we've got the edit button there. Now, adding invoices in, I can either right click and enter invoices by new invoice or add latest invoice. Add latest invoice would fill in some more details for me. Or I can do it from the invoicing page. So just before I add the invoice in, I just want to check what invoice is already there. So if I view invoices, it opens up the invoices page and pre-fills the account number for me. Same as if I'd have come down and opened up Manage Invoices and searched for that account number. You can add a new invoice from here, but I prefer to do the right click, and we've got the same options we had before, add latest invoice. I'll come back to some of those other options in a moment. Again, we've got some hyperlinks, so we can go to the account number. I can view the account details again. Or if I click on the invoice number, I can see the invoice details. So we have the invoice details here. Then we've got the consumption details. So that will show me any consumption charges. So there's just one line here of 1,750 units. In this instance, no meter readings, just a consumption value. Then we've got the charges summary, so detailing all of the charges. So the consumption, the standing charge, VAT, etc. And then the validation summary. So the summary is showing me what it's failed on. You can add in skipped and past ones if you wanted to see everything. I'm just going to close from there and then take you through adding that invoice. So just as a recap here, we can see the last bill was for the 1st of August to the 31st. I want to enter the September bill. So if I right click, add latest invoice. Now this will pre-fill some areas for me. So the portfolio, the account number, the supplier, the fuel type, new invoice, and that it's an invoice, and then the start date for this invoice. So this is the day after the last invoice that was added. If you've got your site details in there, because we're linking to it, it would show the address in here. So anything with an asterisk is a mandatory field. So I need to enter my invoice number. My start date's pre-filled. My end date, the end of September. The invoice date, and the receive date. Payment date's pre-filled. And then I have the net, the tax, and the invoice totals to put in here. So from the bill I just showed you, I'm going to enter those details. So 125.78. If I tab or just click into the tax field, £6.29, tab again, and then the invoice total. So before I go next, there's two choices on how I'm entering the data. Consumption data would just ask me to put in how many units have been used, or meter readings will ask me for the meter readings. So I'll show you the meter readings option and go next. So before I add them in, you'll notice these buttons have come through with me, so I can manage the queries, so I can view any existing queries or add new ones, view or add any notes, and view or add any attachments. So the invoice consumption, we've got the meter, the MPAN here, we've got the serial number, and then it wants to know what sort of data are we putting in. So there's loads and loads of different ones to choose from, but this one in this instance is the energy charge all times. And then I can either tab through or just click into the boxes. The previous date and the present date, if they are the same as your invoice date, you don't need to put anything in here. It will automatically use those dates. And then we've got the previous read. So my previous read is 52645. And that was an actual reading. And then if I scroll across or tab across, my present read is 53157. And again, an actual read. Total of 512 units. If I'd got consumption on my meter that this account is attached to, I would see a variance here and how it compares to it. If I've got more than one line of data, I just simply add, and that will add another line in. And then the total up here would be a combination of the charges. Or sorry, combination of the consumption totals. So that's my consumption added. If I go next, it takes me through to the invoice charges. Now, again, this can be done in two different ways. We can either use the data from the previous bill and update it. So if I double click, I can update it. Or I could reload, which will show me the current data. Now I'll do it in two different ways to show you on two different bills. So this time I'm going to reload. And this is going to bring through my 512 units. So if I've got lots of lines of consumption data, it might be a good idea to do that. What I need to do though is put the price in. So it's in pence. If I double click, my pence per unit is 21.9 pence. And then if I save, we can see the total there, 112.13. I just need to also add in the charge finder, which is the energy charge all time. Similarly, I can add in then any other charges. So if I've got more than one line of data, or I want to add in the stand-in charge. So I pick my metering data. I pick my charge finder. So this time stand-in charge. You can see there's lots of different things in here. My stand-in charge is in pounds. So my stand-in charge is 45.5 pounds for 30 days, and save £13.65. Any other charges I could keep adding? And then we come down to the tax or the VAT. So the VAT in this instance is at 5%. So click in, change it to 5%, and it's worked out the £6.29 for me. The comparison at the bottom, we've got the invoice total. Those are the figures that I put in on that first page, and then the calculated total. Everything matches up. I'm happy with the invoice, and I'll save and validate. There is an option to do save and next if I was putting another one in, but I just want to show you the validation. So it's saved the bill, and now it's showing me what it's failed on. So these validators are set up by yourselves, and it will show me them in the different categories. So we've got different categories of validation. So it's failed on these parts here. Now, anything where there's a percentage or a variance put in there, it will give me the details. So last invoice consumption, a percentage. So this invoice was 512. It expected it to be 1750. The difference, the lower and the higher percentages. So these ones are in percentage, but you can have values in there as well. You can raise a new query from here if you want to query it. I'm happy with that invoice. I'm not going to do any changes, and then I can just close. That takes me back to the invoices page. I'm still looking at this account number, and we can now see there are two invoices in there. The original one we had, and then the September one that I've just put in. As we know, it failed validation. So if I want to add another invoice in, if I right click, add latest invoice, it will pre-fill the details for me. Pop in the invoice number, the end date, the invoice date, the receive date, and then I would put in the totals here. Just want to show you the difference if we were going to use consumption data. If I go next, this time there isn't the opportunity to put the readings in. It's just asking me for the consumption. So depending on your bill type, depending on which one you choose. I choose the rate again. My dates are going to be the same, so I don't need to change those. Let's say it's estimated readings, and the value is 1,000 units. So this time I'm just putting in the amount of units as opposed to the meter readings. When I go next, have the same thing here. So this time it's defaulting to that September bill, the 512 units. Now, if I was happy with these unit prices, it might be better for me not to reload, but just to change the value in here. So if I double click and change that to 1,000 and save, and then it was 31 days, double click, change to 31. So now I've got my data in there for this bill. Again, change it to 5% for the VAT. Now this time you'll see that things don't add up because I didn't put those figures in on the front page. So I can go previous and go back to them, add them in, and then come back in. For the purpose of saving this, I won't worry, and I'll save and validate. Takes me through to my validation. And then I can see my validators. If I'm happy with the invoice, I can then just close, or I can edit. So I can edit, which will take me back into the invoice. And then I could rectify it by putting in the actual figures into here and then going through the screen and then saving again. I'll just cancel out of here for that purpose. So the invoice is still there because it's saved before it did the validation. Now, if I still wasn't happy with it, I can right click and edit. From here, there's lots of other options to set payment statuses, invoice status, etc. You can export it for your accounts file. You can create credit notes. You can see a validation overview from here. And then you've got your invoicing history. So the invoicing history is available from the invoice itself, but also from here. So you can see previous invoices in the system. So that's adding the invoices manually. If you're adding them in bulk, it's the same as you would do with an EDI file, and that's covered off in another session. But just to briefly show you, if I go to data and then down to data exchange and import data, you would create your file and import it through here. So there's various different options. If I just add as an example, there are some different categories here. So we've got invoicing data, and then there's a generic invoice trader.com if you're doing the EDI. And then there's a Teams generic CSV invoice. So this would be you would be able to use this type of file to import it. Once it's imported, it would then go into the batch imports. As I said, that's covered off in the next session. But that's your EDI or your CSV imports all come through into here. So that's that part for you. Let me just show you the help files that are available. So we have the help files, just highlighted here, the adding an invoice section, which then talks you through what I've just been showing you. Thanks for listening. I'll speak to you again soon. Thank you.